Welcome into episode 14 of the State Line Fast Break podcast. This is an emergency podcast as the draft lottery has just taken place Monday, May 12th, and the Dallas Mavericks have secured Cooper Flagg. The Spurs have moved up to number 2, Philadelphia moved up to number 3, and the Utah Jazz and Washington Wizards fall to 5 and 6. Just an absolute stunning turn of events in NBA history right now. Dallas Mavericks just pulled off the heist of a century and got Cooper Flagg. Josh, your thoughts on this conundrum?
I'm shell shocked. I'm flabbergasted. Um, I can't even explain the words that I'm feeling right now. And if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, you should go throw a parade in the city of Dallas because you just landed Cooper Flagg to go alongside Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving once he gets back, and we'll get into how we expect their roster to change mightily from between the here now and then the season. But you trade away Luka Doncic, and everyone sort of jumps on your back, calls you an idiot, and your fans, they went through hell and back this season, and now they're getting rewarded with a generational prospect to go along with a team that can already be a true contender right now. And they had, I believe, a 1.8% chance to land this pick. I didn't even consider Dallas winning the lottery today. It was never something that went across my mind. I mean, they were in the play-in, and again, a team that didn't even consider tanking ends up with the number one pick. And we've seen a couple of these teams, mainly Utah team we've talked about on this podcast a lot, how they've went out of their way to tank. And the NBA says, screw you, we're putting you at 5 and rewarding the Dallas Mavericks. And, a lot of people are going to say the NBA is rigged. And it's going to be hard to argue against that right now because of how much media attention has been around Dallas as a whole. And it's only going to pick up even more. Nico Harrison, you should be on your knees thanking Jesus right now. You have now got the monkey off of your back because you have just been rewarded with a generational prospect. And before we get into who got the number 2 pick, I would love to hear, because I'm sure you're ready to jump all over that, but I want to hear your thoughts on Dallas and the impact overall Dallas fans should feel about landing Cooper Flagg.
Dallas fans, they should be ecstatic right now. This is something that completely changes the trajectory of your franchise. I mean, there was a lot of thoughts with the Kyrie injury, what was going to happen with Anthony Davis. Like, they didn't even know if Dallas was going to be a team that could see their way back into the playoffs. You've been handed the keys to what many have called a generational talent. We'll see how he pans out in the NBA. Certainly one of the best college freshmen we've ever seen. Um, it's good for Dallas Mavericks fans. The organization itself, the ownership, Nico Harrison still should be fired, but they certainly do not deserve this. But what all the fans have gone through, this is certainly an exciting moment for them, a deserving moment. It's the league is going to be questioned heavily here. I mean, we look at the lottery odds, the top 4 lottery odd teams didn't. Charlotte was the only one, and they were projected 3rd to get inside the top 4. Utah fall all the way to 5, Washington to 6, New Orleans to 7, and Brooklyn, who was 6th, falls all the way to 8, with Philadelphia, San Antonio, Dallas all jumping ahead of those teams. Uh, it's funny because a lot of the teams at the top here, Dallas, San Antonio, Philadelphia, everybody was like, these are great teams for Cooper Flagg. If they could somehow jump up, it's far odds. These are teams that are playoff contenders when healthy. These would be teams that'd be electric to see him with, and lo and behold, all 3 of them have jumped up here inside the top 3. Obviously, Dallas, they're going to keep this pick. You don't trade away Cooper Flagg. You take him with number 1. But 2 and 3, it just became pretty interesting. San Antonio now, they've they've won themselves a lottery, not getting number one, but now you have one of the best assets in a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade and a Kevin Durant trade. You have set yourself up in a prime position now. And not only that, San Antonio was the only team in this lottery that had two lottery picks. Obviously, the one from Atlanta, which stays at 14, but their own pick at 8 jumps all the way up to 2. Now you've been given the keys to the kingdom, the best asset in a Giannis trade. Dylan Harper would be the presumptive number 2 pick if this was any other team, but the Spurs now with Fox and Castle and some of the guards they've got there, it's kind of it's a confusing fit. Um, if I had to sit here right now, early thoughts would be that the Spurs do not sit here and take this pick. So, I mean, it's a great time to be a Spurs fan. I'm ecstatic about this. 2 and 14 you go into the draft with. We'll see if they have them by the time the draft rolls around. And we got the big news from Shams today that this is the first time in Giannis's career where he has contemplated teams outside of Milwaukee and what's best for his future. So it certainly seems like that domino is about to fall at any moment, and the Spurs have now primed themselves to make a hard push if they choose to do so.
Yeah, it your San Antonio Spurs sit in a much different position than they sat in just an hour ago. And you should be on your knees alongside Dallas fans, thanking Jesus, praising Jesus, because I do
Oh,
believe that y'all are going to try and trade this pick. What?
I've already done backflips. I gave the dogs 5 treats each. We are static over on this side of the over on this side of the country.
Yeah, I mean, I if I were a Spurs fan, I would be ecstatic because you've now in a position to potentially land a Giannis. You got 2 and 14. We There's going to be conversations though because the Spurs roster as it sits probably isn't a great fit to take one of these guys to come be a starter that's at least going to be a solidified guy off the jump. Now, if you landed at one, you probably or no, there's no probably you would have sat at one and taken Flag, but now you have to be on the phone with the Bucks right now. And if you're the Bucks, you got to pick up the phone because you can get a Dylan Harper, you can get sort of anyone you want other than Cooper Flagg at this in this draft, and San Antonio's got some other things that they could even give. And but Spurs fans should be ecstatic, and I want to talk about Utah here for a minute. They set aside their entire season to which they probably weren't going to be a playoff team, but they could have been a lot better than they were to land Cooper Flagg and he sort of fit. He seemed like a guy who would fit in, like sort of a Gordon Hayward kind of just feel around the guy, But now they're going to be picking at 5, and who knows what they'll do there. And we're going to see them do the exact same thing next year to try and get your guy VJ Etchum or not. Excuse me. I'm blanking here.
Debansa?
AJ Debansa, I don't know how I forget that. They've already basically came out and said that they're going to be trying to get him based on him choosing to go to BYU. Um, but even a guy in VJ Etchcom, a guy who, I mean, will your Spurs consider taking? Probably not. But Philadelphia is sitting at 3 here. They can go get somebody who can help them out immediately next year. And who's to say they won't consider maybe trying to go after Giannis because they didn't probably expect to be sitting here at 3. They were worried that Oklahoma City was going to take their pick if it was going to land past 6. Um, I think the biggest winners are the top 3 just because I don't think any of them truly, in the bottom of their heart, expected to be in this position. Um, you've been very high on Dylan Harper. You've mentioned that you think he could be a guy who could come in and not in his first year, but eventually average up to 25 to 27 points a game. I mean, if some of these teams, I think we could even see some teams try and move up to even 3, 4, just trying to move up, trying to get him. But you got other guys, Ace Bailey. I mean, we're going to hear a bunch of names: Trey Johnson, and then the other Duke guys, Knipple, who you like. I mean, maybe the Spurs try and move up from 14 after if they trade two. Well, who knows what's going to happen? But the biggest dominoes here is Cooper Flagg and potentially Giannis Antetokounmpo, who we discussed at nauseum in our midweek episode this past week, and this is going to be the storyline while these NBA playoffs are going on. It's going to be Cooper Flagg to Dallas, and it's going to be where is Giannis going? And if I had to say, the betting odds probably would lean towards San Antonio here if he's wanting to get moved. And I believe they were already the favorite on some sites, but definitely going to be the favorite considering you all land pick number 2. So I'll ask you a tough question here. If y'all didn't trade that 2 pick, and or if somebody else somehow had a better offer to get Giannis, or he just says I don't want to go to San Antonio, who would you like to see your team pick up here? Or would you like to see maybe go out and get Durant? Maybe not for this pick, but who do you like at this 2 spot if y'all were to sit still and take it?
I think you just got to take Dylan Harper and figure it out later. I mean, you just take what you view as your best player on the board. I think it's pretty consensus now that Dylan Harper is that guy, and I view him as that guy. I think he's going to be a very, very good NBA player. Obviously, it would be funky, as I mentioned. You got Fox Castle already in that backcourt. You throw in another really talented player. You're coming off back-to-back Rookie of the Years, Castle being one of those guys. Um, this would be a lot more interesting, and I think it'd be a no-brainer had you have not just made the De'Aaron Fox trade, because you throw Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle in the backcourt together, and that's fireworks. That would be really exciting to watch. But look, De'Aaron Fox is going to get the extension with the Spurs, as he should. I would advocate for it. He's already an all-star caliber player, a tremendous guard in this league. We already saw some of the things that him and Wembanyama can do together. Look, it would be Harper if I was to stick it to, but you've got to, I mean, everybody's in Chicago right now because of the slaughter in the combine this week. You got to sit down in one of these rooms in the hotel and in the gym where they're going to be playing these combine drills and games. Sit down with Horst, with Milwaukee, figure out what their vibe is on the Giannis front, see what you're kind of looking at there, and then from a different perspective, like you mentioned the Jazz, if I'm the Jazz, I'm calling San Antonio as well or talking to him this week because the Spurs could be a team. Maybe they don't see the immediate fit of a Dylan Harper, of an Ace Bailey, of an Edgecombe or somebody. They still like Knipple. Maybe that's who their guy is just because of seamless fit. If the Jazz are still super desperate to get up to the top 2 or 3, call San Antonio, give them. I mean, the Jazz have plenty of picks to be enticing. You could throw that kind of in a deal. Maybe slide a few picks. I don't know how much I personally would not do that if I were San Antonio, but you got to think that's going to be a conversation that'll be had. And another conversation I think that just needs to be had is what's the future of tanking in the NBA? Because we just saw it yet again with these new lottery odds. It is very rare that the teams at the top actually end up with those top picks. In this case, 3 of the top 4 have fallen out of the top 4. The Jazz, Wizards, both with the worst record in the league, have now ended up at 5 and 6. You got to question whether tanking is a legit tactic. I mean, obviously, if you're the Jazz, you tanked all the way, not only for the chance of the number 1 pick, but it also means you could fall no further than 5, and so that's part of it when you're tanking that you got to take into consideration. But it's really murky about what the future of tanking is in the NBA, and this is going to be a extremely exciting off season. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to be able to dive into. Mavericks fans are excited right now. Spurs fans are excited. Philadelphia is a massive question mark. Who knows what happens with that organization moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, but if you're Philadelphia, you got to be happier than you were earlier in the day just because you probably didn't feel as you were going to get to this spot, and who knows what happens at 2. So
Just the
I think,
grin on Daryl Morey's face just rubs me the wrong way.
yeah.
Still can't get over that guy from his Rockets days.
Yeah, Daryl Morey. I mean, Nick Nurse. They're bringing Nick Nurse back, which I think they should do. Um, if I'm a Sixers fan, I gotta. There's a lot of question marks about that roster around Embiid, and we got the quote today from Daryl Morey that used the word if Joel Embiid comes back. So that is very a tricky just to hear him mention that word, whether if he meant to say that word or not. He did, and that's the quote we got. But I want to talk about this tanking deal for a minute and just the NBA as a whole because they brought in this system so teams wouldn't tank. But it didn't stop teams from tanking, as we've seen seemingly every year, although it's not working out for those teams who are tanking. And a part of me says, like, it shouldn't be this way and the lottery system's broken. And a part of me is like, well, I think tanking is bad and you shouldn't be rewarded for tanking. And so the NBA, maybe I'm looking too far into it, but it seems like the NBA is sending a message here once again um, by to these tanking teams saying, if you want to have the number one pick, you want a guy in Cooper Flagg, then you need to do it the right way. But at the same time, I say that, and the Dallas Mavericks traded away Luka Doncic, who is arguably a top three player in the league, and this is how they're rewarded. But even going back to 2019, the Pelicans traded away Anthony Davis, and which the timeline may have been a little different, but you saw Anthony Davis get traded, and then Zion Williamson gets selected with that number one pick. And I don't believe the Pelicans had anywhere near the worst record in the league that year. So I'm sort of 50-50 on this issue. But if you had a gun to my head to say whether or not the NBA is rigged or, are these picks sort of fixed backstage, I would have to say I would lean that they are just because of how much conversation has been around Dallas, especially just the financial things here, the way of things through money. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks reportedly, we've mentioned it in the past, they were set to lose a number of $1 million just from ticket sales and whatever else. And Dallas, I would argue Dallas is a pretty big market. They lost their key player and their fans, we're trying to send a message about it. Well, now they're getting a American star, potential star, who everyone's going to be talking about. Dallas fans are going to be showing up to their games next year. All those ticket sales, all those season season ticket holders are going to renew those tickets this year, more than likely, because of this. So I would have to lean that a lot of this seems fixed, but in a way, I'm not mad at it because I don't think we should reward tanking as a whole, especially when the NBA has a lottery system in place to take away tanking.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. Another topic that I've been kind of balancing in my head now that we've seen where the lottery odds and picks have ended. What are some decent fits kind of now that we've seen how things are going to shake out with the Jazz falling? They're likely going to miss out on Bailey, Flagg, Edgecombe, and Harper. Like, who's a fit there? Do they want to go Trey Johnson? Is there a big guy? Maybe they like Malawatch, but I don't see that there with Kessler. Queen is a possibility, maybe. They could take Knipple, but really, that's somebody that I want to talk about now, Knipple, because with the way that this shook out, Philadelphia moving up, San Antonio moving up, those were my two favorite fits for Colin Knipple. He would fit seamlessly with what those two teams need. Now you kind of look at this, the teams that are picking between really 5 and 9. I'm not sure Knipple would be the best fit there. They're teams that maybe are not necessarily ready to take that next step. Knipple now falling all the way down to 10 at the Rockets seems like a very interesting equation that could come into play here. That would be, if possible, that would be a perfect fit. Houston obviously has been trying to attract shooters recently. They went out and got Reed Shepherd in the draft last year. Would that be something that they would potentially look into again? Um, it's very, I mean, where is Queen gonna go? Could he end up being somebody that the Pelicans kind of look at, add another big to that stable? Would the Wizards want to pair Queen up with their young core? We got Alex Sarr in the draft last year. That would be very interesting to me. So there's a lot of very interesting fits that we could kind of see now that the draft has shaken out. Trey Johnson of the Pelicans has been one. They were picking too high pre-lottery, but that's something that I would be very, very intrigued by. Adding him to that backcourt, you're probably going to be moving on from CJ McCollum soon. That would be a very seamless fit, in my opinion. Very interesting about we obviously the shakeup at the top, but this really shakes up everything because teams from pretty much 10 on moved around from what we were initially expecting them to draft in the range of. So some very interesting picks I think we're going to see come draft day.
Yeah, I think Houston with Knipple would be perfect. I think Houston here. I think they're going to be heavily aggressive, as we've said, as everyone said, in the trade market free agency this summer. But if those things don't work out, I think that they could even move up to secure a guy in Con Knipple because I could see some of these teams maybe wanting to get some other things. So I think the Rockets should be aggressive to go get somebody who's got the 3-point ability. It's something that they're lacking. He would be. I like that a lot for them. And I thought maybe they were going to get a little luckier than landing at 10, but I mean, you made the first round of the playoffs. You went to a game 7, and you're picking in the top 10. You can't be too mad at that. Um, even the not in the lottery, but on here you got the Thunder picking at 15. They don't deserve that at all, but here we go again. Sam Presti's going to get another decent pick. I could see a lot of these teams moving up, and you mentioned Queen. I'm curious to see what Philly's going to do because I don't see them taking either a guard because they got the two offensive ball dominant guards in Maxi, and they're going to get uh, the rookie back, blanking on
Okay.
his
McCain.
Jared McCain. They're going to get both of those guys back, and both of those guys are going to need the ball a lot. They could use someone, another big guy, Queen, or I don't think Malawatch is worthy of going at this 3 slot, but maybe Queen could go here because they need size to go alongside. I'm not even going to say alongside because I never know if he's going to play or not, but Joel Embiid. So I would say your sort of sleep pick here it would be um, Knipple to the Rockets, and mine maybe a reach at 3, but just based on team needs, I could see Queen from Maryland headed to Philadelphia there at that 3 slot if they stay put.
Yeah, it's a very interesting proposal there. I think that would be very interesting fit. Charlotte for Queen. I mean, we'll see what happens with Mark Williams. Would they be interested in trading Mark again and putting Queen in that front court? There's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen in this draft, and we've talked about it with the tanking. Is that going to change moving forward? The draft is so unpredictable, and you kind of brought this up, but the arms race now, for weeks, it's been what are San Antonio, what is Houston, what is Brooklyn? What are these teams going to do in the trade market? Well, the arms race just got shifted tremendously with San Antonio getting number 2. That's a prime asset now that's going to be in a trade. Brooklyn still holds the advantage. They've got 8 over Houston's 10. Houston, this was worst case scenario for Houston. Not only do they move down, but competitors around them have moved up. I mean, Philly might even be in these trade discussions with the number 3rd overall pick now. Um, the Rockets, who we presume we're going to be very aggressive here, are now going to be playing from behind. Will that lead them to trading Şengün? Will that lead them to maybe trading Amin Thompson? I wouldn't think they would trade Thompson, but if they're going to want to beat out some of these offers, they might end up having to throw in a guy like Şengün into a deal just to kind of balance out the picks that maybe San Antonio are going to be able to throw at you now.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I don't know if they would be willing to give up Sengun, but I mean, I wouldn't go after him, but I think that they should do whatever it takes to get off of Jalen Green. We'll see what his market is, but Sengun is not a guy I would be willing to give up. We'll see how really desperate they get here. But I just wanted to jump in and give my 2 cents. I don't think that Sengun would be somebody that they should trade, but definitely Jalen Green and Amen Thompson. They aren't going to want to give up Amen Thompson, but if you want to go get one of these bigger names, that's who's going to be at the top. If they mention that Sengun's just not even available at all.
So you would rather, if you're Dallas, you would rather keep Şengün over Amen Thompson?
Houston, you mean? I would rather keep Sengun over Thompson. Yes.
Interesting. I think that's very interesting dialogue in terms of I would have a hard time giving up Amen just what we like the defensive versatility that he has, just the ultimate transition player,
Yeah.
athleticism attacking that we haven't seen in many players in
Maybe
league history.
maybe I'm biased just because Sengun plays so similar to uh, Jokic and his playing style. Obviously, I don't think he's to that level, but he does a lot of the same things as far as running that offense. I mean, he's got to be more consistent in his scoring, but um, it was an up and down round one for him. But he's a young guy who did make the All Star team this year. I mean, I like both guys. Don't get me wrong. I just maybe I'm a little biased just from his play style overall, but I do think he's got a lot of young potentials. Maybe not superstar, but he could be a main guy on a championship team if he had the right team around him, and that may take Amen Thompson with him too. So
Yeah, very. That's I mean, because if you're getting a guy like Giannis, they're going to be similar positions in terms of that four. You don't really view Şengün as a five per se, or at least I probably wouldn't throw him in that category. He's been playing along Eason. I mean, they got Jabari Smith, who's a big guy too. They just still got plenty of assets, and they've got future Phoenix picks that are going to be very sought after. Obviously, the pick they've got at 10 because of Phoenix. It's they're in a very interesting position here. We've seen a lot of smoke around what they're going to be doing this offseason. But it definitely got a whole heck of a lot harder for them to pull off some of these moves now that you've got other teams kind of lurking ahead of them in terms of draft picks in this class specifically. But I think that's going to be there's going to be two, like you've mentioned before, there's going to be kind of a couple storylines are going to get out of the week here. Obviously, we're going to talk about some NBA playoffs throughout the rest of the week as we get going. But right down to the main conversations, regardless of what happens in tonight's game, you're going to be talking about the Mavericks getting Cooper flagged. What does this mean for Nico Harrison and that front office? And you're going to talk about the teams that are moving up and down in the draft. What are the plans at those picks? Will there be trades? Obviously, the Giannis story broke today. It's no coincidence that everybody's huddled up in one spot and this news comes out. This is very direct and strategic from Giannis's side, maybe even from the Bucks side, who are going to try to do something that maybe Dallas should have done, which if you're going to trade a superstar, you get out ahead of it, you make it known, you get the best possible package, whether that's 5 players and 5 picks, or you just want 8 picks and a couple pretty good players. For Milwaukee, who doesn't really control much of their future, I would imagine they're going to want to be player heavy as they still want to remain competitive. Um, we'll see. And the interesting
yeah,
thing about a Milwaukee trade is I think it's going to be a 3-team deal because I think they're going to want to try to get New Orleans involved, who controls their next 3 drafts. And
I
that's going to be
agree.
something that I think you're going to see that kind of come into play as we get further down the line. And really, it's a month and a half or so away from the draft. So it's coming quick, and we're going to see some dominoes starting to fall.
I agree with that point you made, and um, one thing I was gonna say, or just have a conversation here about was imagine if that Luca deal went public and they got a king's ransom like they should have for him, and they still landed this pick. Imagine, what their future would be then, and I think their future is heavily bright now. But I mean, they could have added a guy in Austin Reeves, who we've had many conversations on this show about. I said he should already be a Dallas Maverick right now. Um, he's another guy who is probably going to be moved this summer potentially. He had a rough playoff. I think it'll depend on conversations they want to have with Luca and see kind of what he wants to build around him. Obviously, they're going to need to go get a center. I could see Dallas definitely trading Gafford now, but I thought that was probably going to happen anyways. But definitely, I think that's going to happen now. And some of this is draft related, some of it's not. But Austin Reeves probably going to be on the move. But imagine if Dallas had, they had a Kyrie, Reeves, maybe keep Clay, Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Lively. But let's have a quick moment here to think about um, the defensive, just the wingspan, the defensive rim protection between Flagg, Lively, and Davis with the Dallas. I mean, that's going to be so fun to keep an eye on next year. I can't wait to watch some Dallas games now. And it's going to be tough to score on them in the paint if everyone's up and healthy. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and if you're Dallas, you've got to be very aggressive in the offseason trying to find another guard. I mean, you don't know when Kyrie's going to be back. You're hoping to get him back probably the second half of the year, but you got to have somebody that can steady the ship. The, I would hate for this to happen. This would kill me inside, but if you're Dallas and San Antonio doesn't re-sign him, you got to go get Chris Paul. You just offer him the
That's a good point.
whatever the minimum you've got to get another guard. You've got to get a point guard who can operate. Chris Paul would be perfect for them. Now, I would love to see him back in San Antonio under the right conditions. He's got to be willing to take a different role, but Dallas can offer him a starting role to start the year, which a lot of other teams probably are not going to be willing to do, even though I would say Chris Paul had an extremely productive year for the Spurs, um, for what you paid for him and expected him to be. But Dallas go get Chris Paul to steady the ship for the first half of the year, put him next to Clay, Flagg, Davis, Lively. See what you got there. Try to make a push. Then when Kyrie gets back, you got a rock star point guard, scorer, do it all guy. And it's going to be like you said, a fascinating league pass team to watch. Really
They're going to
entertaining
have
basketball.
questions around Kyrie's contract as well. So we'll see kind of what they do with that. But I mean, don't you think? I think you're already alluding to it. But don't you think they've got to make a push now? Now that they're going to get Lively on his rookie deal, you're going to get Flagg on his rookie deal. You're going to have Davis still towards the end of his prime, and then hopefully you're going to get Kyrie back and even just 80% of his capabilities. Don't you think that they're going to have to try and go all in like right now, even though they're going to have Cooper Flagg on this rookie deal?
I mean, Nico Harrison said that this trade sets them up for the future, and it didn't until they got lucky in this thing. I think with the current construction, you have to go in all in right now. Put your best team together that you possibly can because you don't have many years of Kyrie and AD left in their peak. I mean, Kyrie already had the significant injury. Don't know if he's going to be himself. But look, you've gotten Nico Harrison has gotten so lucky because he's going to be able to say, "Oh, look, I did set myself up to be great moving forward in the future." Well, you got some lottery luck here that's going to extend the uh, the window of this team just because of how good that people expect Cooper Flagg to be in the league. But you absolutely go all in. And if you don't want to go all, if you don't think that you can go all in or you don't want to go all in, then I would ship off these guys now and just completely restart the build around Cooper Flagg. And it's not going to be something he's going to really want to do. But if you're not really with this golden opportunity of adding a premier player next to Kyrie and AD when it was going to be pretty difficult based on the picks that you have remaining, you've got to take your shot now and you've got to make a run at it. And this is a prime opportunity if you're the Mavericks. And I mentioned to you off air, but look at the teams in Texas right now. Dallas just got gifted Cooper Flagg next to Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving. Houston was just the number 2 seed who has number 10 this year. They've got Amen Thompson, they've got Şengün, they've got all these guys that are studs. We mentioned Jalen Green. We'll see what happens with him. And now you've got the Spurs who move up to 2, who's got so many question marks around them, who have just came off back-to-back Rookie of the Years. 3 teams in Texas right now are very scary for the Western Conference, and they are going to be. And look, it's always been this way with those teams. They are always in an arms race trying to compete against each other, whether or not that's the main focus behind what they're trying to do. That's definitely something that all 3 of these teams keep in the back of their mind. And they're all like Houston has now seen these 2 teams jump up 6 and 9 picks respectively. They are going to be very, very aggressive to try to match what has now been gifted to those 2 organizations. And I think it's going to make for a fun offseason. And watching those 3 teams next year are going to be must-see League Pass teams.
Yeah, the Battle of Texas is as big as it's been in a very long time. And man, I'm trying to resist myself here from saying something stupid, but the more and more I think about it, the more and more I really like what Dallas is going to have. And I've got to wait and see what they're going to do around the margins with the team, what they're going to do with the Irving contract. But man, I've been as high on Cooper Flagg as anybody, and I don't know how I can stop that now. Now that he's going to get, the guidance, the mentorship from an Anthony Davis, who he has such similar skill set to, a guy who, both guys were such highly regarded number 1 picks, freshman of the year, all those type things. Um, but the more and more I think about it, man, I'm I went from being a Luka fan, wanting Dallas to do great, to wanting them to do terribly this second half of the season. Now I really want to see Dallas do good, mainly because they're getting Cooper Flagg. And do I think they should have got him? No, but I told myself that I was going to be on this Cooper Flagg bandwagon regardless of where he went. And I, I'm not going to make any crazy claims now. I'll wait until I see what their team really looks like. But man, I'm just very excited to see Cooper Flagg and next Anthony Davis. But I mean, but seems like one of these other 2 teams in Texas could land a Giannis. If you paired Wemby up with Giannis,
That leads me to my next question. If you're Dallas, do you say, we made this deal, we think championships or defense wins championships, we've got AD, we've got Kyrie. We may not have the window we thought long term. But do we offer Cooper Flagg for Giannis and fully go in with a defensive player of the year in Giannis next to Anthony Davis and say, let's go for it this year?
I mean, man, that thought did come into my head as soon as they landed that pick. Um,
And this is something that like Brian Windhorst kind of talked about on NBA Today / NBA Countdown earlier. He said that Dallas has had their eyes on that situation in Milwaukee for many years now. They obviously didn't expect the Luka stuff to happen because they were excited about the pairing of Luka and Giannis. They went out and signed his brother not too long ago. Was this something they're gearing up towards? And now do they have the perfect ammunition to make it happen? Um,
it's
like I
something
don't
that
like
they
I don't know that you trade Cooper Flagg in any realm or possibility, but you've said it over and over. Giannis is one of the best players in basketball, and most teams that are in contention should do what it takes to get him.
Yeah, I think it's something that they're going to have to really think about, and they don't have a lot of time to make this decision. But I definitely think there'll be a conversation, and it's going to, uh, Nico Harrison or, their ownership has got a really tough decision to make because I think there's no way that if they wanted it to happen that it wouldn't happen. They have got everything. Now, I don't know how the contracts would work. That's where we'll need your geniuses to see how they could make that work. But I'm sure there's a way they could get it done. And if they want it to happen, I think they will make it happen. But at the same time, to to give up Cooper Flagg, but they just gave up Luka Doncic. I don't think, they're not scared to sort of risk what somebody else is going to go do somewhere else. Um, and I don't really know what I would do because I'm such a Cooper Flagg guy. But if you could pair Giannis with Anthony Davis, oh my God, that would be unbelievable as well. I mean, that's really something that I'm going to have to think long and hard about. And I'm curious to see what some Dallas, if we could talk to some Dallas fans who really keep up with the NBA, what they would prefer, and overall how they would make it work. I don't know, but it's a great point, and I think there's a shot it happens. We're saying they're going to take Cooper Flag one. Now they might, but could he be moved for Giannis? I don't know. We will see. I think that's going to be a major conversation going forward, though.
And here's the interesting thing about it, just because of the way that Kyrie and Anthony Davis command so much money, as well as what you're getting with Giannis, to make this happen, they're obviously going to have to shed up to 54 million. That's going to be the 13 or so million that you're giving up with the number one pick, Cooper Flag. But you're also going to have to do Gafford, Clay, PJ, and then a filler, whether it's Caleb Martin or you end up doing Jaden Hardy or Christie or
I
Najee
see. There's
Marshall.
no way they're giving up. Not they would have to give up Lively. Lively would be the another. Well, Lively and Flag. Lively would be somebody Milwaukee would try and pursue there, don't you
Yeah,
think?
so that yeah, I would definitely, if I was Milwaukee, pursue Lively. The salary is what's going to cause maybe it to be Gafford, and then that's going to have to
Okay,
cause
I see.
um I mean the like if you're Milwaukee, this is interesting because you get four players that are pretty quality players. I don't know that it's maybe as good as some of the players that you can get from other teams. And you get the number one pick, which is always interesting. So this team in that current state, if that's what Milwaukee got, they'd be somewhat competitive, but it's just not the flashy upside. Obviously, you got Flag who's there, but you're not getting the significant assets that you probably would get from another team. But there's a way in which you can fiddle with this to kind of make it work. But boy, that would be a very tough conversation. I don't think
I
really
don't
either
think you
team
can
are
go
going to be.
wrong if you're the Dallas Mavericks, but
But it comes back to that conversation we had with the new CBA rules. Is it possible in today's game to win with just three star players and limited bench options? Because this would completely gut the roster pretty much. But I mean, to put Anthony Davis next to Giannis and Kyrie, I mean, it's got to be something that's talked about, but I don't know that it's something that I would completely finalize if I were Dallas.
yeah, it would be tough to do. But like I said, if they truly deeply down wanted it to happen, I think they could get it done. But they're at least going to have the conversation just knowing that these other two teams in Texas are going to be probably doing everything in their willpower to grab Giannis's talents.
Oh, that yeah, there's no doubt about that. The three teams in Texas are going to be
And he
heavily
wants
looked
a
at.
no income, or he's the no income, uh, or the tax rule in the couple
Yeah,
states here in the
that's
country, Texas being one of them.
that's coming out there. That all that's being leaked for a reason. Like we haven't gotten an official trade request, but there's
Yeah.
significant, hey, there's warning signs all over that, hey, there's something going on here. We got the income tax thing. We've got the open to looking into
Yeah, I
different
mean
options.
Giannis could have came out and said, "I want no part of moving." He could have already done that. Now he could still
Yeah,
do so, but I feel deep down that he would have already done so if that was the case.
yeah, I'm right there with you. Definitely, there's definitely signals across the league that this is something that's very real this offseason, and it just adds to Durant already pretty much almost being traded at the deadline and a lock to be traded in the offseason here. So this was kind of a very interesting look into the draft. This is one of the most unique draft lotteries probably we've ever seen.
Has to
Um,
be.
and this emergency episode was kind of it was kind of a must after what had taken place. We had kind of already planned to just give initial reactions, but the emergency part of this, I think, is what's very key here. Because this is just this is unforeseen. I mean, nobody saw Dallas, San Antonio, and Philadelphia moving up into the top three. So very unique, very exciting. The offseason just got even more interesting. And unless you got any more thoughts, this might be a good time to wrap it up. Be on the lookout. We'll probably have another episode out this weekend about where kind of the NBA playoff stands. I know we didn't get maybe our thoughts out on the last week in the playoffs, but we'll kind of do a deep dive recap this weekend. You'll see our thoughts on the second round series, maybe some conference finals previews as these series start kind of winding down.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces here, and we've got a lot to get into on the playing on the actual NBA playoffs. But they're changing every night, games every single day, so they're constantly moving. So we will do our best. We've got some scheduling issues coming up here as well, but we're going to do our best to get something out there. But man, Cooper Flagg, you have got to be ecstatic right now. And Dallas fans, you one way or another, you should be throwing a parade like I led this episode off with. San Antonio Spurs fans should be there with them in that parade. And I'm like I said, I'm shell shocked. I did not see this coming whatsoever, and this is going to be there's going to be a number of conversations though with regarding where is the NBA rigged and all these type deals, and I think those conversations are fair. But we aren't necessarily here to say whether if it's fair or not. We're here to just break down what happens, give our opinions on it, and that's what we're going to do. And it's going to be as much fun in the off season as much as the actual playoffs are. And I think this is about, the NFL off season is very fun too. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like the NBA off season is maybe the most entertaining of them all.
Yeah, nobody matches the NBA in terms of drama, excitement, trades, player movement. There's nothing quite like it. It truly is a spectacle, sports entertainment, as you could call it. The NBA is fantastic, exciting. Cooper Flagg is a Maverick, and we'll see what happens with the league moving forward. Obviously, it was fun to jump on here. The audio is probably a little bit different as we have kind of jumped on the online recording because of just the emergency, the rush to get a podcast out pretty quickly. Not the typical setup, but either way, hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, all at the State Line Fast Break Podcast. This has been an emergency episode, episode 14, and we thank you for listening.